starting in
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, this is Veronica.
And I'm Studio Steve.
We are the Pod Sound School.
And this is PodBitz. PodBitz is a quick and easy way to digest the latest news and events in podcasting.
Learn about actionable tips to podcast like a beast.
Listen to our podcast recommendations.
And be in the know with what is up in the PSS community.
And we do it all live.
While the clock is ticking.
Unedited.
And raw.
So get those ears ready.
Crank those speakers up.
And let's dive in. Hey, welcome back to another bonus episode of the Pod Sound School podcast.
Hello, lovelies.
This is PodBitz.
Yes, so you guys know the drill. We record PodBitz live on Twitter, Periscope, and on our YouTube channel. You can catch the replay of this on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page, Pod Sound School. And we also publish this episode on our podcast later today. Mm-hmm. So you can watch it, listen to it, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, whatever you want to do. And we always start off our PodBitz with talking about what's going on in the PSS community. So actually, currently, we have a ton of people in our community that have either started their podcast using their phone or are thinking about starting their podcast using their smartphone.
Yeah, so a few months ago, we published this video on our YouTube channel about how to start your podcast using your smartphone using the Anchor app, and it has close to 100,000 views, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of people, and it's really growing a lot of attention. A lot of people are loving it because you can, from your phone, you can create a podcast from start to finish. You use the Canva app on your phone. There's so many apps on the phone where you can do graphic design for your podcast cover and everything. So that's great. But there's all of these issues that people run into after they've been podcasting on their phone and on the Anchor app in specifically. So we thought we'd just chat about that a little bit. And it's a great way to start. It's a wonderful place to get your feet wet with your phone. But eventually, as you start to run into all of these pain points, there's no way around it. Eventually, you will have to start using a computer as your podcast starts to grow and as you continue on your podcasting journey.
Yeah, I can only imagine how hard it is to edit a podcast using your smartphone. That's got to be a challenge.
Yeah, it's hard just because of the size of the phone, right? And also because of the editing options, the software options on your phone aren't the best. Now, if you're on an iPad, that's a different story. There are some pretty cool audio editors that you can get away with using on your iPad, especially if your podcast doesn't have a lot of complicated editing that you want to do, if you just want to cut out the ums and the uhs and do some transitions and stuff. But the main reason that Veronica just brought up is time. It's all about time, right? So to save time, you got to get yourself onto a computer. And we're going to be posting some videos on our YouTube channel talking more about this and showing ways that you can still use your Anchor podcast, but you can now upload your MP3 files to your Anchor app from the computer or even from your phone, and you get much better results.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to experiment with podcasting. I hear a lot of people saying that it's easy to use and they don't have to invest money in expensive equipment or a microphone but if you want your podcast to sound professional and if you want results from your podcast, which I think we've covered all the benefits of having a podcast, I think you have to step it up a notch and start using your computer. And you don't have to steer away from Anchor. You can still use Anchor to record your podcast.
Yeah, so that's our little bit on podcasting on your phone.
This Week in Podcasting.
Okay, This Week in Podcasting.
Okay, so very quick, our course, we've been so busy with our course and it's been a lot of fun. And we just released a new module and it's everything related to your online presence.
Yes.
There's a lot that goes into your online presence when you have a podcast, and we had a lot of fun releasing this module and getting feedback from our students.
Yeah, it's been so much fun working with our students. They're great. And to build your online presence and have a strong online presence and build a social media strategy for yourself with podcasting is so important.
Yeah, it's been great. Do you like Joe Rogan?
I wouldn't say I dislike Joe Rogan, but I'm not like a big Joe Rogan guy.
Okay, so this is a must. We have to talk about this because it's been like the big news in podcasting this week. Spotify signed a deal with Joe Rogan, gaining exclusive rights to his podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. In September this year, fans of the JRE podcast will only be able to listen to the show on Spotify. Later this year, he'll be removing his show from YouTube, but he'll be streaming his videos on Spotify. According to the Wall Street Journal, the deal exceeded $100 million.
Exceeded $100 million.
The deal sent Spotify's stock rocketing upward this week. So if you invested a little money on Spotify, then you did well.
The rest of the stock market is in the pooper, but Spotify is doing really well.
A total disaster week. But it was a very hard week for the stock market. The popular music streaming company isn't buying Joe Rogan's company, as it did with Bill Simmons, The Ringer, or Gimlet Media. Instead, it has licensed the rights to his show for an undisclosed sum. So we know that it's more than $100 million. Rogan is taking a risk. People say there's a chance that he will lose the majority of his audience, but he just went ahead with it. And we trust him, and he's a businessman, so I'm sure he's just getting a very good deal. It will be, Joe Rogan said that it will be the exact show. He's not going to change anything, and he's not going to be an employee for Spotify. He's going to keep working with the same crew, doing the same show. The only difference is that it will be available only for Spotify, which is the largest audio platform in the world. Yeah,
and he had to make sure to say that, right? He's already been on Spotify. He's already been available there the whole time. So, but now he's only going to be available there. Now, some people were worried that it was going to be a paid thing, that you'd have to pay.
No.
You don't. You just have to be on Spotify.
So it's available for subscribers of Spotify, which you can subscribe to Spotify for free. Then I don't know how Joe Rogan's fans feel about this deal. I've heard good things and bad things.
Yeah, there's all sorts of talk on Twitter about it. I think most people are like, it's all right. They're a little bummed that they don't have the comment section on YouTube to talk about, which because that was sort of a community there, those comment sections on his YouTube channel. But this is cool, and it brings us into just thinking about Spotify. Spotify is always in our weekly news, if you've noticed, because they're always dropping huge coin to acquire more and more big podcast companies and podcasting names. And it's because, unlike Apple and Amazon, Spotify relies really heavily on its music platform for profitability. And this is why the company is so aggressively expanding to podcasting.
Yeah, so they bought The Ringer for $200 million, Gimlet Media for $195 million, Anchor for $153 million.
Yep. Oh, and we missed our cue for This Week in Your Queue. But This Week in Your Queue, we'll skip it. We're going to talk more and more about Spotify, but let's get back to This Week in Your Queue with my podcast suggestion. Is a really fun one. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jason Gotts.
No.
And he did this podcast called called Think Again from 2015 to 2020. Well, he just started a new podcast, which is really fun. And it's called the Clever Creature Podcast.
Okay.
And it's fun because each episode starts with a randomly picked word. And then he writes like a short story and a song and then interviews a person about it.
Like on the spot?
Kind of. No, he produces it. But, So it's like 40-minute episodes, but they're very artistic. And it's like just this place for him to explore his own creativity. And he's a really cool personality in podcasting. I just think it's really fun. And again, I was turned on to this podcast by Paul Kondo. Once again, a lot of my recommendations come from him. So...
And my recommendation is called By the Book. I started listening to By the Book when I was working in corporate, very bored at my job. And this podcast is about the host pick a book. It's a self-help or a spirituality kind of book. And during an entire week, they apply everything that they learn on the book.
Right?
Religiously, yes. And they record their, interviews with their husbands and kids and how things are going and if they're changing or improving or tip of the week. So, yeah.
So check it out.
Check it out. I like that.
Buy the book.
Buy the book.
And let's move on to our tip of the week. So our tip of the week here is something that a lot of podcasters will forget to do and then sort of regret that they took so long to do it. And that is to offer something. So offer anything that in return you get an email address, right? And start collecting email addresses from
they can offer,
listeners.
Sometimes it's easy for somebody who already has a business and it's getting into podcasting to intuitively introduce their services and products into their podcast. Because why not? Is your podcast, is your content. You're investing money in producing the podcast. So you should be advertising your products and services. But for other people who start podcasting, like just as a hobby or as a, they had the idea of getting into podcasting, they don't really have that clear in their minds. Like, what am I going to sell? Like, I don't have anything to sell. But even if you don't have anything to sell, we advise you that at the minimum, you should be getting your loyal listeners' email addresses so you can start building your email list. And when you're ready to offer something, then you have that list of people that can buy your products or services. And also you can send them emails every week, every time you release an episode or every time you have some kind of event going on.
Yeah, and it's so valuable to collect emails, especially when you do get to the point where you actually have a product or a service, or you want to turn your side hustle into a real thing and you want to use your podcast to empower that. Having a nice, strong email list is so valuable.
So very quick, what do you need to get that email list going?
Well, you need a landing page of some kind. So different offers you could do is you could do freebies or maybe a giveaway, competitions, a freebie about something that you talk about in your podcast, and you just need
show notes.
An email service provider is what you need. MailChimp, you can get started for free. We really love ConvertKit, and you just build a landing page and send people to that link on your podcast episodes. And that does it for another episode of PodBitz.
Remember to give us some love. Go to I don't know why I did this, but
I like
rate so go to ratethispodcast.com/podsoundschool and leave a review and a rating for us.
Yeah, it really just keeps us going. And also if you're not if you want to take it up a notch with your podcast, we also have some bonus content over at podsoundschool.com/premium. And it looks like we just lost video there, so I'll put a nice video here in place, and we will catch you guys on the flip side.
Laboratories functionally designed for the student use. The new miracle of modern tools for instruction.